Ollie is the last of 3 brawlers making his way into the Brawl Stars update and will be coming in February. Now, Ollie is a Mythic Tank brawler that loves riding his custom hoverboard as well as blasting his hip-hop music. He has some new abilities that we have never before seen in Brawl Stars, but first off, let's start off with his base stats and abilities. Now, as a tank, Ollie has a healthy 11,200 hit points, and naturally he has the tank trait that charges his super whenever he takes damage, as well as he has the same speed as the standard tanks with it being fast. For his main attack called Bring the Ruckus, Ollie fires sound waves from his hoverboard in a small cone that deals 1,700 damage per shot, and they can pierce enemies. Now, it's a pretty standard attack, even if it doesn't deal much damage. Now, where Ollie really shines is his super called Hypnotize. With this super, Ollie will hop on his hoverboard, dashing forward and start blasting his music. Now, this music lasts for about a second or so, and during this time, Ollie cannot attack, but he still can be attacked. However, when the music ends, he will deal 1,600 damage to all enemies nearby in a big musical blast, and more deadly than that, he will hypnotize them as well. Now, while an enemy is hypnotized or taunted, they cannot attack, but instead, they will follow Ollie wherever he goes for the next 2.5 seconds. Now, during this time, Ollie and his teammates can attack the hypnotized brawler, and it does not break that taunt. So while he makes himself vulnerable at the start, the payoff could be huge, as controlling an enemy by either just killing them or luring them to a place where they don't want to be is pretty huge. However, with his second star power called Renegade, when he uses his super, he will get a 4,000 hit point shield that does decay rather quickly, but it helps keep him safe during that time when the music is playing. Now, that will help you stay alive, but if you want to get around faster, his first star power called Kick Push will give him a 20% speed boost whenever he is near walls. But it's not just his super that can hypnotize. Both of his gadgets can do this as well. His first one called Regulate, which is a Warren G reference, and when pressed will do a kickflip that has the ability to go over walls, and when he lands, if there is an enemy nearby, he will hypnotize them for 1 second. Alternatively, you could opt for his second gadget that, when activated, will make his next shot hypnotize enemies for a second as well. Okay, so now that you know all about Ollie's base abilities, let's see how he fares against every other brawler in the game in base level interactions. With Ollie being a tank, let's start him out against the other tanks just to get a feel for him. Ollie is a new type of ranged tank. Now, he doesn't put out a lot of damage, and honestly, that's not really what he's meant for. However, it is still a little bit jarring to see him lose so badly to every single one of the tanks in this class. Daryl destroys him really quick, and while Jackie does take a little longer, it's still not that close. Frank still has over 6,000 hit points left when Ollie goes down. BB hits a home run as she wins easily. And once Ash gets his rage built up, well, Ollie is done for. Now, Hank does take a while, but Ollie's shots, well, they just don't deal much damage. Ollie manages to put up the best fight so far against Buster as they wait around for their shots to reload. And while he does manage to kick Meg out of her mech, by the time he gets there, he only has 100 hit points left. And then finally, Draco finishes him off really without much issue. Now, in a game, I think it's really going to depend on if you can keep your distance at a range with Ollie. Yes, you absolutely outrange the tanks, but you do so little damage to them that they can probably just run you down. However, if you can cycle your supers, then maybe you can control them long enough to get the win, but if you play him like a normal tank looking for up-close kills, then it's going to get real dicey real fast. And speaking of fast, these next matchups won't take long as we pit the throwers versus Ollie. Okay, so it's the throwers at the toes of a new Mythic Tank. There is no way that they are going to win. Okay, that was just a fluke. Surely he's going to... Oh, God. Hey, at least he beats Tick. Now, Ollie does, however, get back into form against Grom and performs about the same against Larry and Lori. Sprout gets him down quite a ways before dying, and Juju doesn't really come that close as Ollie finishes out this class. Now, this one is kind of a tough one. On one hand, if you choose Ollie's jump gadget, you can dominate some of these throwers. However, without it, you're probably not getting to them as you have no wall break. Now, with the speed star power, maybe you can move fast enough along the walls to get to the throwers, but it's really not going to be that easy unless you have his jump. However, some matchups that should be easy for Ollie are the ones versus the support brawlers. Now, normally tanks don't go against support brawlers directly because, well, these squishier brawlers like to stay out of harm's way. Here, though, we are forcing them to stand and fight, and they do actually put up a pretty good fight. In fact, Pam does more than just fight, she wins. And Barry, well, I mean, at least he tried. Max is able to come out on top, and even Byron manages to take half of Ollie's health, which is an accomplishment for him. Now, Ruffs loses, barely, but Gray does manage to bring home a dub. Doug, the tanky support, easily gets a win, and even Kit was only one claw away from victory. Now in the game, this one honestly should be pretty simple for Ollie, and all of these brawlers will be a prime target for him as well. The plays he's going to be able to make, like supering in, hypnotizing a gem carrier and turning the game, or just being hard to get rid of because of his health pool. Honestly, this is a good matchup for Ollie and one that you'll want to exploit. Now Ollie is a tank, but at the same time, he's sorta a controller as well. He's a control tank. So as he faces off against the true controllers, he gets a fast start beating Jessie and her cousin Penny. However, that fun ends abruptly as Bo wins. Ems is a great tank counter and she shows why. Griff dominates here as well. Now Gale wins in a protracted fight, but Ollie takes out the other new brawler Meeple thanks to Meeple's insanely slow reload speed. Now they call this Brawl Stars, but honestly, that looked more like a pillow fight than a brawl. But I guess Ollie does end up winning. Mr. P double bounces his suitcases to victory, and if there would have been just like a half of a second more, Ollie wouldn't have survived Squeak's slobber shots. Say that one 10 times real fast. Lou is able to freeze Ollie and then finish him off with ease, but Otis is looking a little rusty here. That's his skin's name, by the way, if you didn't get that. Willow manages to get off all 3 shots and does a lot of damage before Ollie finally beats her, and while it's not an impressive victory, Chuck does walk away the winner. Charlie is able to slowly whittle down Ollie's health to 0, but Sandy, despite putting up a fight, can't manage to win. But winning is just what Amber does against this tank masquerading as a controller. So in a game, Ollie here is probably going to be fine. I think that he will easily hold his own and do pretty well. Will he be totally dominant? Probably not. But will he be able to utilize that fast charging super to annoy the heck out of players as they follow him around helplessly? Yeah, probably. And if you do this with your team in range and hitting shots on them as well, then the controllers will become the controllers. Now Ollie does have a long range for a tank, but the Marksman define range in this game. However, for these tests, a tank up close to a Marksman, it should be a no-brainer, right? Well, yeah, not so simple. Now, he does beat Nani by just a few frames, and he and Bonnie have a very long battle, and in the end, Bonnie comes out on top. Now, he's able to take out Belle comfortably, but with Mandy, it was very close. Maisie shreds through him fast, but Angelo just takes too long to build up his shots. He does, however, finish strong, beating Janet. Now this one is another tough one. What it always comes down to against the Marksman is, can you dodge some shots and get position? If you can do that, then these brawlers are going to hate you and you will be very hard to get rid of. However, as a Marksman, if you've taken off a bunch of his health, then he doesn't have the DPS to kill you very effectively. So, as always, hit your shots, stay back, and you'll be just fine as a Marksman. However, someone is not going to be fine after the assassins meet Ollie. Now, tanks are normally not the targets that assassins go for, but Ollie might be the exception to that. Now, while he has a lot of hit points, his damage is vastly lower than the assassins, and as such, he is going to have a tough time defending himself unless he has his super ready. Now, one of the newer brawlers, Shades, hugs him to death with 4 big swings, and Mortis lasts quite a long time, but his reload is also one of the slowest in the game, and he loses. Buzz, however, has no such problem and wins pretty easily, and Fang, while it does take him longer to get through Ollie's health, he ends up on the winning side as well. And while Miko does steal some shots and dodge a couple as well, in the end, if we want to talk about poor reload speed, well then Miko is the poster boy for that, and it shows here. Now Melody takes a second to build up that damage, but it gets there in the end and she wins. Lily's consistent and strong damage lets her stab her way to victory, but Crow has a real tough time with that many hit points on the other side. Leon's burst damage is just too much, and Otis with his combo shrooms gets the job done in a close one. As for Kenji, well, he deals more damage than Ollie, as well as heals himself in the process, and that's more than enough to win. Now in the game, this one's pretty heavily skewed in the favor of the assassins, as Ollie, despite his high hit points, just can't hardly deal damage to defend himself. That being said, if you have a super ready to go and you're rocking that shield star power, you can super, withstand the onslaught of the damage, and then you have the assassins in a very compromised position. So if there's an assassin on the other team, be sure to use your super wisely so that you're not caught out when you need it the most. That means that the only set of brawlers left are the damage dealers. Now, as Ollie, if you're going to have one class of brawlers that are hunting you down, then the damage dealers are usually going to be the ones. The more traditional tanks are more equipped to handle the damage that this class puts out, and they can return that damage just as well. However, Ollie, he's not that sort of brawler. If you're going into this expecting Ollie to win a bunch of up-close matchups, then you probably need to readjust your expectations. I mean, sure, Colette can't finish this off without a super, but in a game, she absolutely would. Lola is a great tank counter, and she has very little trouble here. Pearl at full heat absolutely shreds, and while she was one hit away from death, Tara still wins. Now Eve doesn't have the hit points, but she still makes it close. However, RT deals over 1,000 more damage per shot than Ollie, and yeah, it shows. Two brawlers that just got nerfed in Clancy and Mo, and well, they both get beaten here, although it was somewhat close. Wing Mode Buzz obliterates Ollie, and while Saber Mode takes a while, he still gets the job done. The long range Laser Buzz does lose, but he was on the cusp of winning. And if Spike can get those big shots from up close, then he can come out on top. But Surge is more about burst rather than sustained damage, and he loses. However, Chester, well, he has more than enough firepower to take down Ollie for the final match. So then, you've seen Ollie 1v1 versus every brawler. How good is he? Where will he shine, and where will he struggle? No, I mean, that was actually a question for you? Because honestly, I'm kind of confused by this brawler. On one hand, the new taunt is really dang cool, and I think that it's going to be pretty disruptive and very strong in specific situations. On the other hand, the dude just does no damage. It's like his shot is less than a Sandy shot. But then again, he does have quite a bit of health and some really cool gadgets. However, if you can't hold your lane or win your position, then what the heck are you doing as a tank? But on the flip side, his star powers, while they're not amazing, they aren't bad. And by the way, I think that the shield one is better. Overall, I'm just very confused by this brawler, and I really don't know how good it's going to be. Now, I don't think that Ollie's going to be bad, but I also don't think that he's going to be overpowered either. Like, I can't see playing him in Heist. Brawl Ball could be interesting with his taunt. Bounty? Solo Showdown? I mean, maybe. Gem Grab, I think, is going to be good for him as long as the map isn't like too open, but I don't know. I guess overall, I'm just kind of confused by this brawler. And just because I can't quite get a good handle on how good or bad he's going to be, I think that I'll just say that he's average. You know, I mean, actually, I think that he might be like a tiny bit above average. Not like a game breaker, but not horrible either. I will say that he is pretty fun to play, and I really enjoy his model too. Hope you enjoy the update. I appreciate you guys watching all these videos.